traditional oil rubbed, and midnight black on copper metal coating. In this video, we'll show two traditional patinas applied to the copper B metal coating, but this will also work on the copper C metal coating, as well as both the B and C variants of the brass, bronze, and the gold metal coatings. We're just going to slop on some copper B straight onto this hydrocal cast, and typically we start with the primate, but in this case we're going to skip it. But if you have more questions about that particular part, we do have a video that entails all of that. But here we're just slopping on some copper B. Now, we're going to come back with the second coat once that first one's all dry, and you can see instead of brushing, we're just going to sponge it on. And I like sponging on the metal coating because it'll give us a little bit of a texture, and you can control it to where it's not too heavy, but I do like a little bit of texture, but to each. Now, once we have that metal coating pretty well covered, we're going to put the oil rubbed patina on. So this is a traditional brown, and it is called oil rubbed in this specific case. You'll see that once it dries the next day, it's pretty white. But when you go over with just a rag and some water, this is just typical tap water, you can see that the white is starting to come off and that a kind of browny green is coming through. It's really kind of a unique color. And for this specific case, I'm actually going to burnish a little bit back with some 4/0 steel wool, just to relieve a little bit more in that flatter area. I'm not going to try and get it all off. The rag's going to do most of that, but I'm going to go in with a little steel wool just to get a little bit more pulled off. The biggest difference between the B and the C, and I know we've covered this in a lot of other videos, is that you can go on with the 4/0 steel wool and do a little polishing. But the C variant is really meant for more bringing a lot of copper out. Here, I'm just trying to pull a little bit of that existing patina off, so the B can take a little bit of burnishing, but don't try and overwork it too much, or you're just going to kind of go through that bottom layer. So just a little bit of polishing with some 4/0 steel wool is okay to remove some of that patina and relieve a little bit of copper, but not polish it. Here you can see there's still a little white left after this all dries, but I'm going to put a clear guard mat on there, and that's going to help kind of tone some of that white down as well. But overall, just kind of saturate it on there to where it can go in, soak, and get rid of some of that white. You can see I'm actually doing quite a few coats here just to build that up. You don't want to skimp on this if you're getting a lot of white. This goes for black finishes as well. It will often have a whitish finish on this as well. Do some tests so you can kind of gauge it yourself, but I've always found that I can get a little bit of it to go away if I just put on some extra clear coat. Now, I did think that it was kind of a unique greenish brown color, but it wasn't getting that pop that I wanted it to have, so I went the next step. Here you'll see I am just lathering it up with black wax, and honestly I'm putting on more than I probably should. This stuff goes pretty far, so feel free to go a little thinner than I did here, but essentially I'm just putting a bunch on there, and I'm going to let it sit for about a minute. You don't want to let it sit too long, otherwise it hardens up and it's hard to burnish off. But after this, I'll just take a rag and I'll wipe up all the excess off here. I should mention that I gave it a couple days between clear guard to wax. You want to make sure that at least 2 or 3 days for the clear guard to set up and dry out before you start rubbing wax on it. But here we're just going to use a microfiber rag to get off all the excess I can, leaving some extra black wax in the recessed areas to give it kind of a darker, cooler look to it. And after we get all done with that, here is what it looks like, and this is the oil rubbed patina on copper B metal coating with black wax over it. Here we're going to start with the copper B again, and this is over a 1 coat of brass B already. Just had this sheet laying around, so we went ahead and coated the copper over the top of it, since the bronze, brass, and copper all give a very similar finish. And then we'll go in with the midnight black patina. It's important to note that all patinas do not work on all the metal coatings. That's why we wanted to highlight the midnight black and the oil rub bronze, and you can see some of the things that come with it, just like this white that comes on the midnight black, and we had that on the oil rubbed as well. That's very typical for the black and brown patinas, and these are two that I find are the easiest to work with, as far as they usually just wipe off like this. So do a test to see, as far as your reaction in your environment, how it works out, but these have served me very well. And we're going to do the same thing where we just put a little bit of clear guard over the top And we're not even going to use the wax on this one, just so you can see the difference. I liked it as is. And like the oil rubbed patina, we're going a little thicker with the clear guard to help absorb that white finish. And here we have Midnight Black on the Copper B metal coating. Traditional oil rubbed and traditional Midnight Black are available at www.sculptnouveau.com or by calling us at 760-432-8242.